Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Madam Clerk, could I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Christine Adamczak. Councilmember Linda Hammer is going to be late. Councilmember Michael Jazinski.
Here.
Councilmember Gerald Kaminsky.
Present.
Councilmember Brian Nowak.
Present.
Councilmember Brian Pilarski.
Present.
Supervisor Diane Benchkowski.
Here. Okay, we have 6 here at the moment tonight. We have a couple items of discussion. First will be our streetlight conversion project update from Wendell. And Mark and Paul are here too from our office.
Good evening, everyone. The group from Wendell would like to give a brief presentation. We brought the group on back in October of last year, if you recall. They've done quite a bit of work to date. I thought it was an appropriate time for them to say hello and kind of tell you where they stand. They have a PowerPoint presentation. We have Adam Tabelski to my left, Keith Krug and Katie Eckham, all been instrumental in this project to date. The question was asked with the camera in the way. Brian, can you see that screen? Can we move that a little bit?
Really,
Can we move that? Is that something you want us to do? Kind of turn that your way?
I can make the best of it.
Okay, so I'll let them do their thing. It's a brief presentation. There's a follow-up presentation. If there are a lot of questions, do come up and arise, so be patient. Thank you.
Okay.
Is it possible to make the presentation full screen in the presentation mode? Resume slideshow. Resume slideshow. There we go.
Here.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your help. And thank you, Supervisor and Town Board members. We are thrilled and excited to be here tonight because the project, the potential project that we foresaw a year or two ago is proving to be a great win-win for the town. A win in terms of both financial savings and energy savings, as well as a win in terms of updated infrastructure to benefit the residents of the town, namely improved, reliable, quality street lighting across the community. This is a scenario that's played out in a number of communities across the state that are upgrading their street lighting to LED infrastructure. We've been involved with scores of projects, communities of all shapes and sizes, and it's not a great surprise to us that these are the results that we're seeing, but we're thrilled to share the details with you about your particular case tonight. Wendell is, as an energy company, has been working on these projects for several years now, and we've seen significant amount of project success. In this presentation, we want to do a few things, namely review the findings of the field audit that we've conducted for the town of the existing street lighting system, sharing some details of the characteristics of the existing street lighting system with you. Also reviewing up-to-date, hot off the presses project economics for the comprehensive LED street lighting program, which is where you'll see the whole picture of the costs and savings. And also, finally, review next steps to be taken by the town in order to advance the project and move it closer to fruition and capitalize on those savings as quickly as possible. Next slide, please. There we go. I'm Adam Tabelski. I'm joined by my colleagues Katie Eckham and Keith Krug. Katie is the technical lead on the project, and Keith is one of the owners of Wendell and is a longtime leading member of our Energy Services Department. It's been a great team project for Wendell. That team is not only comprised of our staff, but also our close collaboration with town staff in the engineering department, from Pat Bowen and Paul Piewarski, Mark Belfield, Drew Lloyd, the town attorney, Brian Kraus in administration and finance, and many others. I don't want to leave anyone out, but it's been a great team effort. Their input has, through many meetings, emails, phone calls, has helped shape the project as we're presenting to date. And if you have any questions, by the way, as I'm going on, please feel free to interject at any time. We have a presentation here, but we want to convey to you the information that you're most interested in, so please ask away at any time. Next slide, please. Before we dive deeper into the details, just a quick moment about the why of this project. Many communities are looking at LED street lighting because for years, decades, street lighting was a line item in a budget that very little could be done about. You were sort of at the mercy of the utilities. But thanks to changes in technology and in state policy, municipalities are now have the opportunity to be in the driver's seat to realize significant savings. And this slide here is an excerpt from the adopted town budget from this year, just depicting what your current street lighting budgetary expenses are. As you'll see, the top two lines there are mainly utility bills paid to NYSEG and National Grid. You have two utilities in your town that own and operate street lighting, and the sum there is a little over $2.7 million. And I should note that just 2 years ago when we started looking at this, that sum at the bottom was $2.1 million. In 2 years, the street lighting budgetary costs have increased by more than 25%. And it's just another factor of why rising costs everywhere. The good news is when it comes to an energy efficiency project, rising utility costs correlates to increased savings down the road, which we'll get into detail about a little bit later on. Getting these costs control are a major part of what this project is all about. Next slide, please. Most of those utility costs are actually, and sometimes surprisingly, not for energy costs. That's a minority of the bill. In Cheektowaga's case, about 19%. Most of the costs on your utility bill are for ongoing facilities maintenance charges, not the actually electricity that you're spending to light the lights. That's kind of a surprise to most people. It's just the physical cost of having and maintaining that infrastructure, at least what the utilities are charging you to do that. So wisely, the town is trying to do something about this. And as Paul mentioned, Wendell and the town entered into a project development agreement last October after a competitive procurement process for an energy services company to lead a design-build energy performance contract with guaranteed savings. The scope of our work in the project development agreement includes the audit phase and the design phase. And that's really where we're at this point, is wrapping up the design phase. So at this point, to tell you more about the work that we've done to date, where we are now and where we're going, I'm going to turn it over to Katie, who's again our technical lead, who will lead the next several slides here. And again, if you have any questions, please ask me.
Thank you, Adam. Okay, so this slide is perfect here. So for the current status regarding the design of the project and kind of where we are today, we have completed the GIS field audit of all of the streetlights in town, and that consisted of auditors going up to every single streetlight in the entire town of Cheektowaga, and with our GIS system, collecting the information regarding that location, including pole type, pole condition, arm condition, the type of fixture that was there, the existing lamp type and wattage, and all of that information was collected into our GIS system in order to create a proposed design. So with that field audit, we determined that most of the streetlights in the town are currently Cobra heads, which are those roadway lights on the wooden poles that you see on the roadways. There's about 5,000 of them out of the total 7,800 lights in the town. The next majority is of post tops, which are about 2,700, followed by other, which include shoe boxes, which are the rectangular fixtures, floodlights, underpass lighting, wall packs, etc. A couple of teardrops as well, which are the decorative fixtures that you may see on some of the more decorative roadways. And the next step here is the reconciliation, and this is the phase in which we compare the results of that audit to the inventories of the streetlights provided by the utilities. And we do that to make sure that everything is completely accurate and everything is included in our scope that needs to be. And it's also a great step to ensure the accuracy of the inventory as well that was provided by the utilities. So that step is complete, as well as the preliminary design, which includes designing the lights to be equivalent in LED wattage from the existing HID, which includes high pressure sodium, mercury vapor, etc. So once the preliminary design was complete, we'll be beginning the final design, which is we are nearing completion currently. And what that final design does is take that preliminary design and incorporate results from photometric modeling that we perform in-house. And that is used to confirm that the proposed light levels are adequate and either equivalent to what is out there currently or is making them better, more efficient. And this final design also will include any town comments or requests for lighting levels. Okay, we could go to the next one. So our current status regarding the LED street lighting purchase, you may also see us refer to it as a buyback. This includes the purchase of both the street lights themselves, so the luminaires, but also the street lighting facilities. So that includes all metal poles, arms, wiring, conduit. The only thing that really isn't included are the wooden poles, which currently hold up other distributions, such as telephone wire, electrical wire going into residential homes. Those wooden poles will remain in the ownership of the utilities, but everything else after this purchase will be owned and maintained by the town. So we did receive the buyback costs, and we finished reviewing those. National Grid came in approximately $2 million, and NYSEG at about 1.75. For the current status of where we are in this buyback process, for National Grid, they are currently reviewing the purchase and sales agreement, which are basically the agreements that explain what this purchase includes, and we have been working with the town attorney and the town engineer going through those documents and working with the utilities going back and forth to kind of review any comments from the town. So currently National Grid is reviewing those comments that we had, and we are estimating a closing of May 2024, and that closing will be the complete sign-off of the town to accept the lighting and facilities. And once that closing is complete, then they are owned and maintained by the town, and the town will immediately start seeing those savings that Adam had mentioned of the facility charge and maintenance costs. For NYSEG, the purchase and sales agreements are currently being reviewed by the town. Again, we're going through the process with Wendell, the town attorney, and the town engineer. Once that is complete, then we'll be submitting our comments, and we are estimating a closing date of approximately June of 2024.
I'm sorry to interrupt, I have a quick question.
Absolutely.
Because with the Grid, you're saying that Grid themselves are reviewing the purchase and sales agreement, and with NYSEG, you're saying the town is. Does NYSEG have interest in reviewing the purchase and sale agreement at any point, or have they already done so?
Yes, so I apologize. It may be a little confusing there. So for National Grid, they're actually reviewing our comments on the purchase and sales agreement. So the town in Wendell and the attorney has already completed our review of the National Grid agreements, and we
Okay.
returned them with all of our comments. And so National Grid is currently reviewing the agreement with those red line markups and
Right.
comments. So we're a step behind with the NYSEG agreements currently, but they will be reviewing our comments.
That answers my question, thank you.
Perfect. Okay, any other questions on the street lighting purchase process?
Could I just ask a couple questions?
Absolutely.
Some of the street lights are ours, we already own. Were you able to distinguish which ones we already own? I don't want to have to pay for something we already own.
Yep, absolutely. So, yes, the town already owns approximately 1,000 lights, both in National Grid and NYSEG territory. So those are not included in the purchase buyback. They will be converted to a different service class, however, which will be completely town-owned. Currently, the NICEAG one is Service Class 2, which means that the town owns and maintains everything except National Grid, or NICEAG, I apologize. NICEAG performs some slight maintenance, such as relamping, but they will all be converted to one service class, which will be town-owned and maintained completely.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay. Yes?
Yeah, so the current graph we had before, it said 19% is energy cost, 81% is facilities and maintenance. How long does that facilities and maintenance cover? What span of time? Is it a one-time shot? I mean, is it over 10 years?
So those facility maintenance charges are billed monthly to the town, and those are indefinite. Those are billed every single month without fail to the town. They are increasing, as Adam alluded to, per year. There's an escalation, but those are not one-time costs that the utilities are charging you. Those are every single month, and they are set out by the tariffs and the PSC. So those will not go away until they are owned and maintained by the town. in
So
which
they'll
they
go away then? Okay.
Correct. They go actually to zero. The only kind of charge that will remain is something called a pole attachment charge, where the town will pay a small fee. I believe it's for NICEAG, for National Grid, it's about $7 per light, and that's to attach a luminaire to a utility-owned wooden pole. So those are also included in all of our costs and estimates that you'll be seeing.
Thank you.
I do wanted to check on the poles now. So
Mhm.
what happens when you saw some of these poles that we're supposed to own? So we have to invest more money into some of these poles? You probably can't put the new luminaire or
Right,
head on.
absolutely, yeah. So during our GIS audit, we actually collected pole condition as well. And what we did in our cost estimate is we included an allowance of sort to replace of the worst conditioned poles. So we look at the quantity of them, and we assume that, like you had said, we would never want a subcontractor replacing a light on a bad pole that's about to fall down. So we have an allowance set aside so that they can replace that pole during construction before replacing the luminaire.
Mhm. I know some of them, you know, the highway department replaces the bad poles annually, a certain amount. But, so some of them should be okay, but then you'll come across a few, I don't know if it's the majority or,
Definitely not the majority based on the
Okay.
audit. We do have a small bucket for it currently for the construction, but we also take into account the continuing replacement of those facilities, as even though they're not bad right now, they may be 5 years from
Right.
now. So we do also, in our cash flow that you'll see in a couple slides, have an allowance set aside for that as well for the town. Kind of, not an allowance, but more a recommendation of money to be set aside, pulled from savings.
okay. Anybody else?
Okay,
Mhm.
go to the next slide. Okay, getting into the fun stuff, the project economics. So what you see here is a project cash flow, which includes everything that I kind of discussed earlier, which is the buyback of the facilities from the utilities for costs, material of the luminaires, labor for the installation, all labor and equipment necessary, which includes all utility requirements as well that are taken into consideration, and professional services, contingency, etc. So that is what you see in the blue areas. The dark blue is actually the financing payment, which is based on an interest rate from the town finance department of 3.7% interest over a 10-year period. So that finances that dark blue. And then the light blue, which is the annual cost, includes projected maintenance costs, so what it will cost for the town to actually maintain and own these lights themselves. So in the green, we have annual savings. And you may notice that the year one savings is higher than the rest of them, which kind of stands out. That is because for year one, we included the anticipated incentives from the town, but those incentives are not included in the above simple payback period, or the net annual savings, just to be clear. Yeah, absolutely. So the total project cost, that first line you can see is 12.3. The first year savings is 1.9 million, or 1,913,000 per year. And the simple payback is 6.4 years. And that equals a net saving over 25 years of 23.7 million. Did you want to jump in at all? I saw you jumping up.
Thanks, Katie. A question we often receive is, how long will it take this project to pay for itself? What's unique about street lighting projects, because of the technology change and the significance of the savings, is that the savings in green are greater than the cost of financing the project over time, plus the cost of any maintenance that may be performed by the town, such that it's net positive right in year one. You're not waiting 6 years for this to return. It's going to start returning positive cash flow, if you will, to your budget right in year one. So even when you factor out the cost of the project and maintenance, the sum of the navy blue and the light blue, the net savings is still greater. And that's an important aspect that we often receive a question on. And you may notice there's a slight increase each year, so we conservatively build in escalations, both on the cost side, what it'll cost you going forward, as well as the Department of Energy inflation for energy rates, which we've only put like 2 or 2.5%. So it's a pretty conservative number.
Before I move on, the next slide will be on savings, kind of digging into that a little bit more. Were there any questions on this slide?
That's what I was just going to ask. Any questions on this slide? This
Anybody?
is-
Any council members? No?
If we could go to the next slide. Oh, I think we may have skipped one. There we go. Oh.
While we're on there,
Oh.
I don't know if we mentioned in the navy blue box that the net savings is 23 million. What that is the sum of all the positive cash flow over the equipment life. So at the end of the equipment life, even after budgeting for replacement work and repair work over its time and paying off the anticipated 10-year borrowing, you still net out ahead $23 million after that 25-year life.
I've got a question now. I'm not seeing the numbers add up. We're talking an annual savings of nearly 2 million. 2 million times 25 in my mind, somewhere around closer to 50 million. So where's 23.7 versus the 1.9 million a year?
So those are net savings, that 23 million, so that's after taking into
After the
account
costs.
all of the costs that the town will incur. So projected maintenance,
Right.
replacing any bad facilities, and those annual charges to the utility for attachment.
And I don't mean to be a pain in the butt. I ask you, it was net over 25 years. I'm seeing net on the annual too. So
Can we go back one slide actually then, just so that we can make sure that,
yeah,
so for those first year savings, the reason I had said net on those is because also included in those are the first year projected maintenance as well. So the first year savings include the savings from the utility charges, savings from the energy reduction, and an additional cost, which is a little confusing, of projected maintenance. We want to ensure that we're not blowing anything up that you're not actually getting.
Yeah.
So we're taking those first year projected maintenance out of those savings, and you see for the first year that it goes up to 2,500. That's because there's an additional approximately 400,000 in incentives that will be given to the town that year.
So looking at this chart again, it kind of makes sense because basically years 2 to 10, we're not saving a heck of a lot. And then after year 11 and on, that's where we're really banking it. Gotcha.
Exactly. Okay. So going into the savings, again, that net annual, because of the projected maintenance included in that, is 1.9 million. If you did take those projected maintenance and just looked at the savings, you would be seeing approximately 2.1 instead. It's about 200,000. So the savings breakout include the electrical energy savings, which is the reduction in energy from going from HID, which are typically higher in wattage, down to an LED, which require less wattage for the same lumen output. And this equals about 3 million kilowatt hours per year in savings, which we have some environmental savings equivalents to the side, just so that you can kind of see what that CO2 looks like as well, which is approximately 1.5 million, and what that equates to in real world figures. The next is the facility and maintenance charge savings, which will be reduced from the bill the second that the town signs off on the closing. So that next bill, you'll automatically be seeing 1.6 million per year off of your bill. So that divided by 12 for that monthly bill amount. And again, our savings do include projected maintenance costs, as those costs will not be are included in this project, because they will be going towards the actual maintenance of the facilities instead. Okay, were there any questions on the savings? Okay, the next items we have here are going to be going over to Adam, kind of on the project and the process. And if there were any additional questions on economics or savings, we can talk about them later on as well.
Thank you, Katie. Great job. Just again, yeah, to step back out of the project details to look at the overall process. As you see on the generic timeline here, we've completed the GIS field audit. We're nearly completed with the designing and pricing phase. And we're getting ready to move into the next 3 boxes, the green boxes, the preparing of the financing for the project, the acquisition process of actually purchasing that street lighting infrastructure back from the utilities. And by the way, we've got a duration there of 6 to 8 months. There's a regulatory process involved with that, as we've mentioned, not just the local legal review of the agreements, but it also is kicked up in those to the state level, and those asset transfers are reviewed by the New York State Public Service Commission. So you have to get on their agenda, and they have to give you the green light, which they always do, but it just takes time to go through that process. So we've allowed time for that. And then, you know, hopefully, as that PSC approval is obtained and the asset transfers close with the utilities, we move immediately into implementation, being ready to go with the installation contractors all lined up to start the change-out process. And that may take 10 to 14 months based on a variety of factors, including weather and whatever else you might imagine is going on in the town. And there's a little asterisk there with our timeline, which I'll go back to in 2 slides down the road, so remember that. And ultimately, that results in a guaranteed savings energy performance contract. Essentially, what that means is if there's any shortfall with the numbers that we're presenting here tonight, the financial savings, the energy savings, Wendell is on the hook for making up the difference. And we can tell you that that's never happened with any of our projects, but we go through a rigorous design process, as you can see, but ultimately the town can take comfort in knowing that the commitments that we make as we enter into these contracts are guaranteed. Next slide, please. We're certainly not asking the town to take any action tonight, but we do want to advise you that there will be some action items coming up in the very near future to keep the project moving forward in terms of resolutions that require action by the town board. Resolutions to advance the financing, which we would certainly take the lead on from your finance department and from the town's bond council, that may be able to happen as early as September or as soon as possible. We want to try to do that to lock in pricing, and which Keith can talk about in a moment. Also, resolutions to finalize those sale agreements with the utilities that Katie described, and resolutions for the final contract with Wendell. I mentioned at the outset that the current contract just covers the audit and design phases. We would need another contract to cover the construction phase. We would essentially be acting from that point as your design builder to oversee and be responsible for all aspects of the project, including all of the labor and construction. Do you want to mention that one thing?
I just want to mention our confidence level and the ability to do this project for the costs that we're showing. We have a portfolio of about 40 street lighting projects across New York State. We've done competitive pricing with various electrical contractors that are qualified by the utilities to do this work. We have pricing from them We also have pricing locked in to buy direct from the manufacturer. So the manufacturers, we've vetted to get direct pricing to avoid, markups by the distributors and by the electrical contractors to keep the costs of these projects as low as possible. We're anticipating, like everything, that the cost of materials would go up in 2024. So one of the paths that we're hoping we can collaborate with you on is getting authorization prior to any potential cost increase to avoid any change in those figures between now and the end of the year.
So what does that entail? You said authorization.
Generally, manufacturers of this equipment would raise their costs for luminaires, LED lights in, January, February of '24. So our objective is, if we so have your approval at an upcoming board meeting, which would be authorization to place an order to lock that pricing in.
Okay, so we'll have a resolution
Of course, yes.
submit, and
Yes.
then you can go ahead and do that.
Correct.
Okay.
Next slide, please. So if we're able to meet all of those milestones, as Katie was kind of foreshadowing earlier, we hope that for the street lighting that is purchased from the utilities, construction would be able to start on those in May or June of 2024. And again, then the town would be owning that infrastructure and be responsible for it. We'd have our installation contractors working every day in the field to change out lights. And the asterisk that I mentioned before was that the lights, as the supervisor mentioned, that the town already owns. Those don't need to go through any sort of buyback process from the utility or approval process from the Public Service Commission. It's possible that we can convert those lights sooner on an accelerated timeline before the end of this calendar year, starting that installation process. As Katie said, there are about 1,000 of those lights, so that would start to make a noticeable impact in the community just a few months from now. That's our presentation. We're happy to entertain whatever questions you have about any aspect of the project, from the economics down to the community impact. Again, we'll have more information to share in terms of tangible steps as we move forward through the coming weeks, but we greatly appreciate your time. We know you have a lot on your agenda, and
I did have a
we're
couple
available
questions,
at your
though.
request. Yes.
Another one, which I had thought of, is the brightness of each street light. So you're trying to match whatever was there before? Because I've seen some LED lights that were put in it, they're not as bright as the original light, especially on some of the main highways, like Broadway, right here in front of us, or...
So the
Mhm.
brightness, we like to equivalent to lumen output, because that is what we see as brightness. And our design ensures that for all of the locations, the lumen output is either equivalent to, so the same brightness, or better in comparison. If there are any requests from the town that specific streets are currently overlit, those may be analyzed, and we would do the photometric modeling on them to show what the difference would be in the lumen output or the visual brightness of those locations. But in general, the basis of design is equivalent or higher in wattage.
Had there been any recommendations to add extra street lights on a street that might be kind of dark?
So that is being explored. So with our GIS audit, we were actually able to get a visual of where the streetlights are throughout the town. So the town engineer and our different street lighting committee in the town are currently reviewing that map and are able to see areas where there may not be existing streetlights. And it is a possibility that they may request to add additional streetlights in certain areas. So it is possible to be included in our project currently. The only areas where we are recommending adding lights are those that were found on the utility inventory that were actually found in the field to be removed or taken down due to some reason. So there's about 25 lights that are currently not up that were at some point and were removed that we are including in the project.
Okay, and I'm sure you've been working with Pat Bowen, because Pat
Oh, yes.
usually knows, right, when they're replacing a streetlight head, and the lumens and et cetera.
Mhm.
because we do have some dark spots, so that's just,
Yes, we definitely encourage during our meetings with the town, and we do have weekly design meetings coming up in the coming weeks to go over those to result in that final design where we go over any areas that the town knows about that may be underlit and would benefit from additional lumen output.
so I think it would be good if we had a breakdown of what you're adding in addition to what we have now,
Mhm.
so the board can kind of see and
Absolutely.
make suggestions. Yes. Mark, you'll have to come up because you won't be heard on YouTube.
Yeah, just real quick, with the upcoming meetings to finalize the design of the streetlight project, we will be talking and having discussions about like what she was just discussing, streetlights that could potentially be underlit or without streetlights
Or
on the poles
overlit.
themselves, or overlit, correct. And we will be getting in contact with some of the council members, including the police, to give us more advice, because they're out on the road, to determine which areas they think would be more helpful to add or increase lighting, or even decrease lighting in some aspects of that. So that's gonna be coming, coming up soon, within the
Okay.
next, weeks and months to get that information out to you.
Wonderful,
Okay.
thank you, thank you.
Were there any other questions?
Any questions from the council members? Councilmember Noe?
Most of mine were addressed between the supervisor and that. Only one I have that's left is, it's kind of an obvious question, but I just want to make sure I understand it as clearly as possible. We talk about replacing a light, so if part of replacing the light is putting up the LED, if that light's not working, we get into the wiring, right? We get into the pole, base, all this stuff. I just want to make crystal clear that it's not, well, we put the new light up and it's not working, so good luck, guys. Just trying to, just so we're absolute crystal clear understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is included in a part of what we discussed in our cost estimate, were those allowances during construction for possibly bad luminaires or bad wiring or poles.
Yeah.
So if a streetlight does not work during construction when they are immediately put up, it is not left. It is, we continue to figure out what the issue is until that luminaire is working and adequately, and at the end of the project, at turnover, every light that we have installed is ensured to be working correctly.
Thanks.
And the way we manage that is we have unit pricing from the electrical contractor. So if, for example, a conductor wire is frayed or not working, they mark it, they note it. We're using the GIS application and real-time data where they're indicating, the light that was installed, the work they did. And then we have a unit price through the competitive bid that, basically it's a per item basis. It's not just, free for all. So that's how we manage the details of each installation.
Yeah, I've got a question. Has there been any conversations about the smart lighting? Where, say Walton Avenue, where we've got all the stores and everything, where it's fairly bright and you can turn them down. Plus, I also believe that you can track the lights that are out,
Yes.
from a console.
So
No.
included in our project are asset management, is an asset management system, which, like you had said, controls the luminaires by either dimming them or brightening them. So they will start at the 100% brightness, but if it is requested that they be dimmed down, the asset management included in this project economics does have the ability to dim those lights down. Did that answer your question, or
Yeah.
was there anything else with that? Is that it? All right, great. Well, I'll leave it to Adam, but we really appreciate your time and all of the questions. If anything else arises that you may think of later on, please do not hesitate to reach out. Pat, Mark, all have our contact information, and we appreciate your time.
Thanks. Thank you for coming. Yes, go ahead. We have Paul Polarski here. He wanted to add a few things.
So just as a follow-up to what Mark was saying, we'd met with the team prior to this meeting, and it was somewhat all of our idea from the town, not to get too detail-oriented today. There is a PowerPoint you saw. I will be forwarding that to you. There's more information that they haven't got to. It doesn't just stop at thank you. There's more to it.
Okay.
And the level of detail that we found out, it's just overwhelming. And we didn't want to bog anybody down with just too much information. There's that problem as well. Jerry, you asked about the smart city lighting. We've already included into the project cost the asset management, which is on every one of these fixtures, so the technology, and we'll deal with the police mostly on this and some of the troubled areas, that it just gives us such an avenue, such a wide array of things that we can do with this, but that does come with a cost. There again, we included the asset management. The smart city lighting currently is not included with the budget, and they didn't get into it much, but they just touched on it. The reason why we want to get this moving is we're buying into a price on materials that I believe is good till the end of the year. Right, so that's why we need to keep things moving. Brian's been great. He's been helping us along, dealing with the bonding committees. So we're looking to move and kind of keep this thing rolling. I thought it was an opportune time to bring you all where we're currently at. Again, we'll forward this in the mail. A lot of it's difficult to understand, but it's a lot of good information. But thanks again.
Mhm. Thank you for sending that. I was going to ask about that, too. Anything else? Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to, I did want to talk about briefly, anyway, how do I do my sheet? The update on the resolution that the town board passed at the last meeting. It's Resolution 2023-444, ensure the town's codes are being complied with at the Cheektowaga hotels housing asylum seekers long-term. So at our last work session, the town board did pass the resolution. We've been in contact with the supervising code enforcement officer, just so everyone knows, and our town attorney has been working in finding a outside attorney to help with this project that we're facing. So first I wanted to let all the residents know that whoever sent me emails related to the town law, section 268-2, asking the town to enforce the town zoning provisions with regard to the transformation of hotels to homeless shelters, that I received them all. And the town board is looking to proceed with action. We are going to do it, but we are in the early stages right now. Hopefully you don't have to do it. You did ask us and you put us on notice, but hopefully we can do it and proceed. But you just have to give us some time. I know already that according to that section of town law that it's within 10 days. You're welcome to do your own, but the town board is trying to move forward with their own action at this time anyway. Second is I had a conversation with County Executive Mark Polenkars today, and he told me a few things about the Dingens facility, which he asked to be closed down. It is going to be closed down as a homeless shelter for migrants, definitely is, and they have identified a hotel outside of Cheektowaga to transfer those migrants to. So they are moving them sometime this week to the Red Roof in Amherst in the Sweet Home School District. The Dingens facility will be closed to migrants and then can operate as a regular hotel again. Also, the town board has submitted a resolution tonight. We are under our waiver items to retain outside counsel that is versed in this type of situation. If you choose to make any comments tonight, please rest assured that we are listening. However, we cannot make any further comments about the situation and answer further questions due to attorney-client privilege and the preparation of our case. Again, we are in the early stages now and working with the new town attorney, so we ask for your patience. As you know, these things take a while, but at least we're getting some movement on the Dingens facility. So right now, we can't even have our supervising code enforcement officer speak on anything because we're told that we have to just wait. So if anybody's asking, that's the reason. Any town board members want to add anything else to, if I missed anything?
No, I think that's pretty much
Okay, thank you, Jerry. Next, we'll go through town board resolution items. We do have a public hearing tonight, actually two. One is for the cable television agreement between Spectrum and the town, and the second one is the special use permit at 6386 Transit Road, Phase 2. Resolution 1 is the transfer of funds. Any questions? 2 is the warrant. Any questions on that? 3 is an award of bid to approve one Blue Diamond skid-steer snow blower for the sewer department. 4 is the acceptance of proposal air monitoring for asbestos abatement for Cheektowaga Town Hall HVAC project. As everyone can see, we started the windows, and now we're moving on to the HVAC. Councilmember Jazinski.
I just wanted to raise some concern about the abatement. Shouldn't we be doing the abatement once the air monitoring system's here? We shouldn't probably be doing it prior?
So with the window abatement specifically, the window abatement doesn't require air monitoring. It requires a visual inspection because it's a non-friable asbestos. So basically, all they're doing is removing the caulking around the windows that seal it, and they place it in a bucket, and then they dispose of it accordingly. With the interior work involved with the HVAC system, yes, there's going to be air monitoring equipment that's going to be in here for a couple days, and then after the asbestos abatement is finished. So that will take place. But two different things. One's for exterior, no air sampling required, just visual inspections by the third-party agency to verify that they're doing it accordingly. And then the interior, yes, that's different.
So there's no potential of any airborne?
Not for the caulk, it's non-friable.
Thank you.
Anything else?
And do you want to just let them know that it's only 2 offices that we know of with the,
That is for the
asbestos for the
interior
HVAC?
HVAC project,
Yes.
yes. So it is the town clerk's office and the accounting office, department office, that has the friable asbestos ceiling tiles, which those offices will be quarantined in their entirety. There's a lot going on with that to make sure that it's safe.
Mhm.
So,
and that's when they'll be there monitoring.
oh yeah,
there.
correct, yeah.
Any other questions, anybody?
Okay.
Thanks, Mark. Okay, resolution 5 is to reject bids for the building and plumbing department office renovations, and we bid those out, I assume, so. 6 is the notice to bidders, Phase 7 sanitary sewer manhole rehabilitation for the sanitary sewer shed number 4. I'm sorry, yes, that's number 4. And then 7 is a notice to bidders for the Phase 8 of the cleaning, televising, and rehabilitation of the sanitary sewer facilities through the cured-in-place pipe for sewer sheds 9 and 10. 8 is the JAG grant approval and application. 9 is the renewal of engineering computer-aided design software licenses. 10 is authorize supervisor to execute agreements with utility companies to attach the flock safety security cameras to town utility poles. Any questions? 11 is to execute memorandum of understanding with Stanley Falk School. They use some of our fields. Resolution 12 is the appointment to our Board of Ethics Committee. We do have one opening there, and it's to fill the rest of the term of whoever was appointed in that position previously. Any questions on that? 13 is the appointment of an assessor for the town of Cheektowaga, Michael G. Milks. As you know, Michael had taken the temporary assessor position and did a great job. He got everything straightened out. And so I think we're ready to appoint him as the assessor because we have to start talking about what we're going to do next year. So. And because of Michael moving out of his position, 14 is for the appointment of assistant field assessor, which was Michael's old position, and we're appointing Robin Anderson tonight. And then 15 is the appointment of a computer support assistant, which will be Anthony Horton. Anthony, congratulations. You probably took the exam and passed, so we can appoint you permanently now. Congratulations. Same thing goes with the 16 is the appointment of an administrative clerk, permanent, competitive permanent. She took the exam. Building and plumbing department for Carrie Frank. 17 is the appointment of a court clerk, contingent, competitive permanent will be Nicole Pucolo. 18 is the appointment of community development aide, competitive permanent, which is Lynn Kazuda. She's been in there provisionally for quite a while, so we'll be able to appoint her permanently. And 19 is the appointment of pump operator provisional David Odajeski. Not sure if I pronounced his name correctly, but it's David. 20 is the appointment of automatic mechanic helper Michael Shields in Central Garage, which we've been looking for and need. 21 is the hiring of part-time employees for the Justice Court, Mike Madonna. And 22 is a travel authorization for the town assessor. And we have 2 items, I believe, under waiver, suspension of rules. The first one is the award of bid for the police classroom and training center. Paul had asked if he could put this in, Paul and Mark, so we can get going on this police center. It looks very, very nice. I don't know if anybody has any questions, any details, but we did have to find some extra money, but I think we can pull that off, so that'll be good. And resolution 2 under waiver items. This is the one that's going to retain outside counsel relating to the New York City Asylum Seeker Program. So that's the one we have on waiver items tonight. Any questions from anybody? I don't have a need to go into executive session. Does anybody else? Okay, so we will adjourn the work session, and we'll see you back at 7 o'clock for the regular meeting.